Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on chumbacasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at chumbacasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's chumbacasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Where we tackle the real and raw challenges of being a woman in leadership. Today's topic is one that many might never talk about or even shy away from, but it's deeply personal for so many of us. And it's the discussion of leading while wounded, serving when you're still healing. You know, leadership doesn't stop just because life hurts. Whether it's a heartbreak or betrayal or a deep personal loss, we're expected to keep going. Well, how do we do that while staying authentic and whole? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. So let's
Welcome to the Heart of Zion podcast, where kingdom conversations expand our growth. Make sure to subscribe and explore resources at heartofzion.org. Now let's dive into today's episode.
I just want to start with the simple truth. Everyone is carrying wounds. But for leaders, those wounds often stay hidden because we fear being seen as a weak individual. You know, the pressure to appear all put together while leading can really be overwhelming. The Bible gives us an incredible example of this in Apostle Paul. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, 7-10, Paul speaks about his thorn in the flesh. You know, in the Greek word, the thorn is skolops, which means something sharp and painful, like a stake meant to torment. Paul begged God to take it away, but instead God said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Paul teaches us that our wounds aren't obstacles to leadership, but opportunities for God's power to shine through. Think about this. When we lead from our wounds, we're often more empathetic, more understanding, and more real. But first, we have to recognize and admit that those wounds actually exist and not try to constantly bury them. Brene Brown, in her book, Daring Greatly, she talks about the courage it takes to embrace vulnerability. She calls it the birthplace of innovation and creativity and change. I believe it's also the birthplace of an authentic leadership. You know, it's a delicate balance, isn't it? How do we acknowledge our wounds without letting them consume us? How do we remain vulnerable while staying responsible for those we lead? David has a story of this powerful example. Before becoming king, David spent years fleeing from Saul, often in the caves or in the wilderness. He was wounded emotionally, betrayed by the very man he served. Yet, in those moments, he wrote some most vulnerable psalms, like Psalm 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. The Hebrew word for the broken is shabar. It means to be shattered like a broken potter. God isn't asking us to pretend our pieces aren't broken. He's asking us to bring those pieces to Him. One way to find vulnerability and responsibility is through trusted relationships. Having people in a circle who can hold your pain without judgment. It could be a mentor, a counselor, or even a peer in ministry. But we have to stop trying to hide it and be afraid and delegate tasks to trusted team members when you need time to heal. This might be the hardest truth to accept. You're wounded, or your wound has a purpose. That betrayal, that failure, that heartbreak, it's not been wasted. God has a way of weaving even the darkest moments of our life into something so beautiful. Joseph was a prime example. He was betrayed by his brothers. Can you imagine being sold into slavery and then thrown into prison? And yet by the end of the story in Genesis 50:20, Joseph says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." What if our wounded part has a bigger story? What if it's shaping us into the kind of leader who can empathize with the broken and comfort the hurting and lead with a depth of wisdom that can only come from a place of pain? The word comfort in 2 Corinthians chapter 1:4 is paraklesis. It means to come alongside, to encourage. God doesn't just comfort us so that we can feel better. He comforts us so we can turn around and comfort others. Let's get practical. How do we really actually lead while we're still healing? Well, the first thing we have to learn, if you haven't learned yet, is to set boundaries. Learn to say no when you need rest. Boundaries aren't selfish, they're essential. The second part is to prioritize your self-care. This isn't just a bubble bath and a spa day. It's the real work of soul care, prayer, counseling, journaling, and spending that intimate time with God. And 3, leaning into a community. You don't have to carry this alone. Build a circle of trusted people who will uplift and support you through this. I want to recommend some books. If you're looking for more guidance, I'm going to recommend that you read Leading While Bleeding by Anthony McFarland. It dives into how to navigate leadership challenges while managing personal pain. But here's today's takeaway. Your wounds don't disqualify you from leadership. They just make you human. And in your humanity, God's power is made perfect. Isaiah 40:29 says he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. So if you're leading while wounded, know this. You're not alone. And you will never be alone in this. God is with us. Other people have also or are in it or have been through this. And I tell you what, His grace, it is more than enough. So I thank you for joining me today on She Leads Unfiltered. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share this with someone who needs that encouragement. And let's keep the conversation going. Until the next time, keep leading with grace and authenticity.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.